Hi everyone, and welcome to another Future of Design Community Fireside Q&A session, hosted by myself, Andy Smith of TDA Creative, the design, product and tech talent agency. I'm absolutely delighted today to be joined by Ryan Leffel, who is currently the VP, Head of Design of Priceline in New York. Ryan, thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Andy. Good to be here.
Cool. Ryan, let's start. Give us a little lowdown on your experience today, a little introduction of yourself, please.
Sure. So, as you mentioned, I am at Priceline. I have been at Priceline since September of 2019. So, I started just a little bit before the pandemic hit. I oversee our product design team, our brand design team, and our user research teams at Priceline.
Okay, cool.
Prior to Priceline, I have spent time on the brand side. I've worked at Yahoo. I did a brief stint at a company called Pearson. I have worked on the agency side. I spent time at RGA, a digital agency called Cora. I have freelanced at several other agencies, and at some point along the way, stepped away and became an entrepreneur. Opened up at a gym, a health club. So I was a little bit a step away from design in a sense, but I feel like that was me getting my MBA, and I learned a lot of lessons there that actually made me a lot better at where I am today. Although ultimately it didn't end up working out, but
Well, it
what
sounds like you
became
found it sounds like you found your home after almost 6 years at Priceline.
I did.
Cool. Well, thanks for the intro. Really appreciate it. And look, during that journey, what is it that you have found most satisfaction from, you most enjoy about being a design leader?
So there are a few things about being a design leader that I just really love. One is being a part of someone else's career journey in a way that I hope is impactful. You become a design leader for a reason, and in most cases, it's because of the experiences you bring to the role. And you have an opportunity to bring with you the good. You've worked with a lot of people. You have had managers along the way that you've learned from that have really helped you and helped shape who you are. And at the same time, you have worked with people who maybe you haven't quite got as much value from, right? Or we're not the type of leader or manager that you want to be. And I think when you're
Lessons
a design,
learned.
lessons learned, yeah. And when you're a design leader, I think you have the opportunity to really step back and think about that. And who do I really want to be? And what is the good? And what did the people do that I have learned a lot from that I can take with me and pass along? And what have I learned along the way that I just didn't like or didn't work for me? And how can I not be that person? And you have an opportunity to pass those things along to your team.
Great.
And I just think there is something really powerful about that. One truth is we're all going to leave our jobs at some point. And I think the hope is that you can leave your role in a better place than you found it. And another piece of it is I think that if you're able to prepare someone else on your team to step into your role and do a better job than you did, then you were actually very successful. You understood the mission and you did the right thing. And then I would just say there's one more piece of it, and it's the challenge of it. And when I look back and think about my time starting off as a designer, there were years of just sitting in front of the computer and doing design work. And there are so many different elements of craft that you learn about as a designer, and you just have to really grow into. Then at some point, you might start managing, and then that balance of being hands-on and managing starts to transition a little bit, and then you find yourself in this role where, wow, I'm just really managing or leading a team full time and I'm not doing as much design. And with that comes a whole new sense of craft. And there is a lot more that you have to learn and just continuously evolve with. And so I also appreciate that end of it also in terms of the challenge.
That's great. And I love your second point. I think it takes a certain confidence and sensibility to be able to nurture talent to probably take your own job at some stage.
Yeah, but I think if somebody is able to step into your role and be successful and do a better job at it than you did, that's a big win for you. That means you did something good.
Certainly does. Great. Okay. And what are your key tips for building a design culture across a diverse team and design ecosystem?
I think the number one thing is creating a space where people are comfortable being themselves. it doesn't always have to be about the work. So make it fun. The more people get to know each other, the more people trust each other, the better they collaborate and the better their work will ultimately become. So we'll do things like have game days. We have somebody on our team that we appointed a social chairperson, and every other weekday, one of their responsibilities are they just set up an hour of games where people come in. We don't talk about work. There's no status updates, no design reviews. It's just people getting to laugh and have a good time.
That's
People get
great.
to know each other doing that, and I think I have seen a lot of success with just teams bonding by finding ways to bring people in and just let them connect. And the other piece is how can you build a platform for your team to really have a voice within the company? The one thing that we do consistently is every month we send out a design and research newsletter where everyone on the team has an opportunity to put something in a newsletter that's going to get sent out to the entire company that they've worked on during that month, that they're most proud of, that they want people to know about. And there's a lot of good in that. I mean, at
That's
one,
great.
there's
Yeah.
people within the organization who might be like, hey, I didn't know we are working on that one particular thing, or I'm working on this one initiative here, which kind of lines up with something else. So we should talk about that. So it's just kind of good for just overall awareness of what you're doing. But it's also good because that one page, those 2 pages that that person has to put in their work just really gives them the stage to
Yeah.
show everyone else what they are doing.
I love that. I love that. And out of interest, is that reciprocated by product and engineering?
I feel like we're starting to see more newsletters crop up. So there are
Okay.
more teams that are starting to do it. I'm not saying we started the newsletter concept, but I
Yeah.
mean, it is, we're seeing more of it, but it's
Yeah.
great. And it's, it's just a good footprint into being able to see work other people are doing. And that
Yeah.
at the face of it, that seems like the obvious, but really, I think the bigger thing there is giving individual people who are contributing to the newsletter, it's their space to shine. And I think there's just something really important about doing that.
And I guess that obviously it helps with collaboration, but also going back to that remote teams, people can feel a bit siloed. It's another kind of platform to feel less siloed, right? And more open.
Yeah, right. And talking about challenges, one of the challenges with doing a newsletter is getting people to actually put in their content on time every month. So there's a chase that goes along with it, but
Yeah.
it's always worth it in the end.
Great. Okay. Um, I feel like you've answered a few of these questions, but biggest lessons learned in design leadership, would you say, for
I
yourself?
think the biggest thing that I've learned is you don't have to be the smartest person in the room and you don't have to be the best designer in order to be a good design leader. There are people on my team who are better designers than I am. In many ways, they're smarter than me. And I've learned over time that's something that I should really embrace. And as I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of experiences that I've had that they haven't. So while I'm able to learn a lot from them, I think I'm also able to help these people become more successful in their day to day and overall career growth as a designer. But for me, the biggest lesson is you don't have to come into it with ego and you don't have to come into it thinking you have all of the answers. It's about asking the right questions and really trusting and leveraging the people around you to help make things better.
Great. Thank you. And look, we learned a bit about your day job and your design leadership, but I know you host your own podcast for design leaders, and we've interviewed many of the same people, which is a great watch for everyone to tune into. What's the kind of driver and why do you spend so much of your free time doing the podcast and the in-person kind of hosting events that you've done at Priceline as well?
Sure. So so we work closely. I work closely with UXDX, which is a large content and conference event organizer to help along with Priceline sponsorship, run events in New York City. It's just a great way to bring the local community together. I think we're
Yeah.
at a place now where we can certainly do that. We obviously went through years where we couldn't. And I think networking kind of suffered a lot during that time. Networking is incredibly important. It's probably more important than a lot of people realize. I think you start to realize it when you get later in your career, when it becomes a little bit too late. But I thought it was a great opportunity just to create a space where people could come together, have a good time, talk, get to know one another, but also bring in people who are very much established who don't mind coming in and speaking about something of interest to design, product, and tech, or to have people come in who are, I'm kind of interested in getting into speaking. I want to test this out. It's a great environment to be able to do that. So
Yeah.
I love that piece of it. In terms of the podcast, it's called That Pivotal Moment of Change. And really, I talk to people not so much about what they do, but more about how they got to where they are. And I think those are really important conversations to have because it's about telling your story.
Yeah.
And I started to get into that because I was speaking at conferences and I was talking a lot about process, right? Or maybe conversion and, you know, building products, e-commerce, whatever
Yep.
it might be. And what I kind of realized was at these events, we were all saying, I think we were all saying the same thing in maybe slightly different ways, but the biggest difference was our slides looked different, right?
Yeah.
So I went to a conference and I told my story, and I talked about successes, but I talked more about failures, and I was vulnerable, and I talked about where things didn't go right, but about how all of those different things led to the next, and
Yeah.
I get a lot more engagement after the talk from doing that kind of thing. And it wasn't because of my story. I think it was because I was being vulnerable and I was
Yeah.
talking about failures and how those failures ultimately turned into an opportunity. And that's really what led to the idea of doing the podcast. It would be really interesting to talk to people who are accomplished at what they do and not talk to them about what do you do every day as so much as to how did you get to where you are.
Yeah. Real world
And
takeaways, right? But where challenges became opportunities and overcoming issues that we all have, right?
we all have it. And I think when you hear people talk about how they got to where they are, it's never a straight path. There was always a lot of challenges. There was always setbacks that in the moment seem like the end of the world, but then they turn into opportunities. And I think people, especially today, hearing those types of things just is really helpful. Hearing somebody else who went through a struggle, or somebody who did something that's like, hey, this just like I've never tried this before, but I had the courage to do it and it worked out really well. I think
Brilliant.
hearing those types of things are inspirational and just the type of thing we all need to listen to. So it's been a lot of fun, bringing people in and just having interesting conversations. And I feel like for me, I learn something new every conversation I have.
Good for you. Brilliant. And everyone should have a watch. Ryan, I always finish with a little curveball question. Can
Yep.
you tell us something that few people know about you?
Okay, so there are two things. One, so I a blended family. I'm remarried, and we have four kids, four teenagers, one boy and three girls. So that's an interesting piece all to itself. But the two middle, my daughter, his name is Mia, and my stepdaughter name is Mia. So we have two Mias who are within a year age range of
Right?
one another. So that's something there. And then my last name is a palindrome. It's spelled the same forwards and backwards. So uh, I'm always on the lookout for
Yeah, of course it is. Love
it
that.
is. Yeah. So I'm always on the lookout for a palindrome.
Great. I will be too now. Well, Ryan, look, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate your time. Great to chat. Looking forward to seeing you on future events that TDA we host or events that you're hosting.
But thanks, Andy. I
And
appreciate it. It was
and
great
I'll
to.
catch you next week in New York.
I hope so. Thanks a lot.
Cheers, Ryan. Thank you.